The dungeon was the worst curse ever cast upon the world. It was a curse placed on humanity by the Demon King in his final moments, unleashed after he was slain by the legendary hero 1,000 years ago. From the dungeon, miasma and monsters overflowed, bearing their fangs at humanity as they continued to obey the Demon King's dying will. In order to break this curse, adventurers from all over the world continued to challenge the dungeon. Amidst all of this, a young man named Alto Reese graduated at the top of his class from the Adventurer Academy. Rather than becoming an adventurer himself, Alto chose to work as a staff member of the Adventurers Guild, aiming to become a pillar of support for those who ventured into danger. The work of a guild staff member was extremely busy. One day, someone from the Tsurukame General Store called in, and Alto thanked him for his continued patronage. The man replied that he was looking forward to this month's order. Alto listed the requested items, mentioning parchment, ink, and quills. Another customer placed an order for a desk and chair set. Confirming that everything was correct, Alto smoothly handled the ordering of supplies. His days were filled with managing quest acceptances and responding to adventurer consultations. At one point, someone approached him and asked if he had a moment. The person wondered whether it would really help if they could borrow a summoned beast capable of flight. Alto replied that he did not mind at all. He asked if 3 wyverns would be sufficient, then proceeded to summon 3 of them. The adventurers thanked him profusely. This was part of a rental service that made use of Alto's specialty in summoning magic. He even ran an introductory course on summoning magic, and reservations were booked solid for the next month. Thanks to these unique services, the guild's reputation improved greatly, and the number of guild users had more than doubled. Alto often reflected on his situation. Guild staff were civil servants, and compared to adventurers, the work was plain and the pay was low. However, the stable salary and comprehensive benefits made it an appealing occupation. More than anything, Alto wanted to give his mother, who had raised him all on her own, a comfortable life free from unnecessary stress. He had contributed significantly to the guild's profits. That was why, despite graduating at the top of his class, he had given up his dream of becoming an adventurer and instead chosen the path of a guild employee. At that moment, someone called out to him. It was Desmond Taylor, the guild master of the C-rank guild known as Noble's Garden. Alto responded nervously and asked what Desmond needed. Desmond said there was something he wanted to discuss and told Alto to come over. As Alto approached, he thought about Desmond Taylor and wondered what kind of snide remarks the guild master would make today, questioning what this sudden discussion could possibly be about. Alto reflected further on his position. He was the only person in the guild who had been born a peasant. Desmond believed that guild staff were upper-class citizens and that anyone working there should come from proud lineage. He considered himself someone chosen by God, born into nobility. Because of his background, Alto had endured treatment that bordered on outright bullying. Still, he reminded himself that it would all be over in just 2 weeks. The guild conducted a personnel reshuffle once a year. He told himself to endure it, to have patience, believing that if he held on just a little longer, he could finally escape this hell. Desmond called Alto by his full name and then delivered the news. Alto Reese was being fired, effective immediately. Alto's mind went completely blank. Struggling to process what he had just heard, Alto demanded to know the reason, insisting that he had properly contributed to the guild's profits. Desmond explained that the reason was simply that Alto had been born a peasant. Alto was left stunned. Desmond continued, calling him a commoner whose only talent was summoning magic, and claimed that Alto should be grateful he had been allowed to work alongside a proud and excellent noble like Desmond himself. He added that Alto should feel thankful that the guild had even allowed him to remain on the roster for a full year. Hearing this, Alto let out a strained, nervous laugh, completely thrown off balance by the sudden and cruel turn of events. Desmond continued to twist the knife. It was truly unfortunate for Alto. Desmond remarked that Alto had thought he would soon be able to say goodbye to the guild, didn't he? To be fired right before his transfer and end up out on the streets was almost pitiful. In that moment, Alto finally realized the truth. Desmond had done this on purpose. Alto tried to keep his composure, but his hand clenched tightly into a fist. Still, he knew it was useless. If he lost his temper here, he would only be playing directly into Desmond's hands. He reminded himself to endure it, to remain patient. Alto excused himself and turned to leave. Desmond called out to him again, asking if Alto had heard him. He said he was not finished yet. After taking care of Alto for an entire year, Alto was really planning to leave without even offering a single word of thanks. Alto froze in place, stunned. Desmond looked down at him from above. Alto forced himself to bow deeply as Desmond watched. Tears streamed down Alto's face as he struggled to form the words, thanking Desmond sincerely. Desmond smiled in satisfaction, having obtained exactly the reaction he wanted. Alto wandered through the town in a daze, his mind completely blank as he walked through the streets. 2 guild members watched him from behind. Alto stumbled and nearly collapsed, barely managing to steady himself. One of the members remarked on how he was just spacing out like that. Alto's thoughts drifted to his mother. He imagined how disappointed she would be if she learned he had been fired. As he continued walking, a newspaper suddenly caught his eye. He stopped and picked it up. Alto stared at the newspaper in shock. The headlines were filled with news about his former classmates from the academy. One article announced that Stella Glosha had conquered the Secondary Saga's Cave Suro. Another reported that Rex Gardner had completed a major subjugation. There was even an article about Rune Farmi developing new magic. Every one of them was making headlines and achieving incredible feats. Alto remembered each of them clearly. He looked down at himself and thought about how amazing everyone else was. A hollow laugh escaped him as he wondered what he was even doing with his life in comparison. Eventually, Alto arrived home at his modest rural house. He opened the door and called out that he was home. Suddenly, the door swung open dramatically, and Alto's expression shifted to complete shock at the sight before him. 3 people greeted him at once with birthday wishes, all wishing him a happy birthday together. Alto stood there, utterly confused by the unexpected surprise. Alto asked Stella, Rex, and Rune why they were all there. Stella Clausia, the sword princess of Demon Flame and a B-rank adventurer, excitedly explained that it was Alto's birthday and that they had coordinated their schedules to throw him a surprise party. Rune Fermi, the 2-sided glyph and a C-rank witch, said it had been a long time. Rex Gardner, the peerless dragon knight and a B-rank adventurer, asked how they had done with the surprise. At that moment, Alto's mother appeared, holding a birthday cake. Alto called out to her, and she told him how happy she was that he had such wonderful friends. Alto admitted that he had been so busy with work that he had completely forgotten his own birthday. He then realized that he was turning 15 that day. Stella handed him her present and told him to take it. Alto examined the gift and immediately realized how rare it was. Stella said she would be happy if he kept it safe. Rex recognized it at once as a Princess Shrine made in crystal. Someone added that it was also known in certain circles as the Love Stone. They teased Stella about being eager to visit the Sorcery Mountains lately, prompting her to snap at them to stop. Alto thanked Stella and promised to treasure the gift for the rest of his life. Stella questioned his words about treasuring it for a lifetime. Rex then presented his gift, a longsword forged from 8-color adamantine. Rune followed with her present, explaining that it was a hand-knitted robe woven with anti-magic. Alto thanked everyone, saying that he was truly happy. The group gathered around a round table filled with food and enjoyed the birthday celebration together. Stella brought up how Rex had stolen her kill the other day. Rex laughed it off and told her not to worry about it. They chatted casually about running into each other in dungeons recently. Suddenly, Rune remembered something. Stella called out to Alto and asked how his work at the guild had been going lately. Alto looked confused by the question. She then asked whether he was still working at the guild known as Noble's Garden. Rex commented that, knowing Alto, he was probably doing something amazing again. Rune added that she would really love to hear stories about his work. Alto hesitated and scratched his head, stumbling over his words as he tried to respond. He finally admitted that, actually, there was something he needed to say. His 3 friends stared at him with puzzled expressions, waiting for an explanation. After a brief pause, Alto revealed the truth. He told them that he had been fired from the Adventurers Guild. His friends were left completely stunned by the news. The 3 of them immediately erupted in disbelief, demanding to know what had happened and why the guild would ever fire him. Alto mentioned that the guild's finances had apparently been tight lately and wondered if it might have been part of some downsizing. Stella snapped back that firing Alto under any circumstances only proved that the guild master was utterly incompetent. Rex agreed, bluntly stating that the man clearly had no eye for talent. Rune added that the guild master should return to the Adventurers Academy and start over, since he obviously did not understand Alto's true worth. The 3 continued talking heatedly among themselves. Meanwhile, Alto sat quietly, processing everything, his expression thoughtful as he absorbed their unwavering support. Suddenly, all 3 of them called out to Alto at the same time. Stella suggested that they should form a party together this time. Rex invited Alto to join his party, while Rune asked if he would consider joining hers instead. They continued their enthusiastic appeals, each revealing that they had been preparing for this moment. Stella explained that she had deliberately remained an unaffiliated solo adventurer over the past year. Rex said he had spent the last year training relentlessly. Rune asked whether Alto knew that she had devoted herself entirely to magic training during that same time. Alto stood there in silence as the reality of their words slowly sank in. At that moment, Alto's mother appeared and called out to him, asking whether it was true that he had been fired from the guild. Alto apologized and admitted that he had been planning to go straight to the employment office the next day. His mother questioned that plan and suggested that becoming an adventurer might be a good opportunity, especially since his friends had invited him. She then directly asked why he did not become an adventurer. Alto objected, arguing that being an adventurer was dangerous, with unstable pay and poor benefits. His mother immediately scolded him, saying he sounded far too mature, like an old man. She told him that she was happy he cared so much about her, but reminded him that he only had one life and should live it more freely. She pressed him for a clear answer, telling him to decide like a man whether he would chase his dream of becoming an adventurer or go to the employment office to find another job. Alto struggled to speak, hesitating as everyone waited in silence. At last he declared that he wanted to become an adventurer. His mother congratulated him and wished him good luck with his decision. The weight of the moment settled heavily on Alto as he finally committed to his long-suppressed dream. Alto thanked his mother for supporting him. The others began cheering together, calling out for one more round and building excitement in the room as they gathered to play hand games. Stella warmly accepted the invitation and celebrated the outcome, declaring that they should form a party together. Alto told Stella that he would be happy to join her. Stella reacted with excitement, thanking him and saying they should continue doing their best together. Alto agreed, affirming the arrangement. At that point, Alto's mother spoke up again, remarking that if Alto was in the same party as Stella, she could finally rest easy. Stella reacted with surprise at being addressed so directly. Alto's mother continued, asking Stella to take good care of her son since he was not always the most attentive. Stella responded humbly, saying that she was still inexperienced but looked forward to working together. Rex remarked that the situation kind of felt like they were asking for Stella's hand in marriage. Rune immediately agreed, saying that was exactly how it sounded to her. Stella began to panic as the implication finally sank in, demanding to know what they were talking about. Alto's mother cheerfully chimed in, saying they would happily welcome a cute girl like Stella anytime. Alto quickly told his mother that it was rude to say something like that to Stella. His mother responded playfully, pointing out that Stella did not seem completely opposed to the idea. Alto reacted with surprise. Stella paused, processing the words more carefully, and realized that being told she was welcome anytime meant parental approval. She hurriedly pointed out that both she and Alto were still minors, and said that they should wait until they were more grown up before talking about such things. Alto tried to calm her down, explaining that his mother had only been making a bad joke. Stella hesitantly asked whether Alto's mother was really joking. Alto's mother eagerly reassured her, saying she completely understood, and that Stella should not worry at all. Stella agreed, though she still looked flustered. Rex stepped in and suggested that they move on and make a toast. He announced that they were celebrating Alto's birthday, as well as the formation of their new party. Everyone raised their glasses and cheered together. The celebration continued as they ate and drank around the table. Later that night, Rex observed that it was already pitch black outside. Alto commented that they had so much to catch up on. Rune added that time really did fly when you were having fun. Stella apologized for making Alto go out of his way to walk her home, but Alto told her not to worry, saying they still had not talked nearly enough anyway. As they walked through the dark streets, Rex suddenly called out to Alto. Rex suggested that they have a mock battle for old time's sake. Alto looked surprised by the proposal. Stella questioned whether a mock battle between the two of them was really a good idea. Both Stella and Rune quickly grew excited, saying it reminded them of their academy days and that they would love to see Alto's summoning magic again after a whole year. Alto agreed to the mock battle, but asked Rex to go easy on him. Rex acknowledged the request. The two of them took positions apart from each other in an open training area, preparing to face off. Rex remarked that his record against Alto was 0 wins and 18 losses. Alto asked whether Rex understood what those numbers meant. Alto wondered aloud if it was what he thought, mentioning his record against Rex. Rex confirmed that he had it right. He said that during their 3 years at the Adventurers Academy, he had never beaten Alto even once. However, he declared that he would finally clear that record here and now. Determination showed clearly on Rex's face as he held up a coin and explained that the signal to start would be the same as always. The match would begin the moment the coin hit the ground. He tossed the coin high into the air, where it spun against the night sky. The coin rotated as it passed between them. Rex apologized in advance for attacking Alto when he was rusty, but said he was coming at him with everything he had. As the coin continued falling, both fighters braced themselves. Rex activated Heavenly Dragon Possession, a secret art passed down through the Gardner family, calling forth Water Dragon Zeldanera. The technique summoned a celestial dragon into the user's body, allowing them to borrow its overwhelming power. Rex lunged forward with explosive speed, moving so fast he nearly became a blur. Alto responded immediately by summoning Flame Ogre Org and Thunder Dragon Ringa at the same time, calling forth two beings to counter Rex's assault. The Flame Ogre Warrior Orglinga emerged wreathed in fire, a massive horned demon radiating intense heat. Rex strained under the pressure, noting that Alto had performed a chantless double summoning. Alto apologized to Orglinga for the long gap and asked both summoned beings to lend him their strength. Orglinga declared without hesitation that he would, as high-ranking spirits and greater demons stood ready. Rex watched with an impressed expression, thinking that the scale of Alto's summons was on a completely different level. Just as always, Orglinga unleashed his attacks, invoking Thunder Roar Ash and Dust, along with Flame Durrani. The combined assault from Orglinga and Rex's Water Dragon technique collided, resulting in a massive explosion. From a distance, Stella and Rune watched with shocked expressions. Stella commented on Alto's insane destructive power, noting that it had not changed at all. Rune anxiously wondered whether Rex was still alive after that devastating clash. The smoke slowly cleared, revealing that Rex was still standing. Alto let out a sigh and remarked that it would have been nice if that had been enough to finish things. Rex responded with a confident grin, saying that Alto really showed no mercy. Alto asked whether Rex had blocked the attack using the Water Dragon's Aqua Mirror. With a smirk, Alto added that it was just what he would expect from the Dragon Knight of Manu. He then laughed, saying that coming from Rex, being called Manu sounded like nothing but sarcasm. Rex suddenly charged forward and called out Dragon Art, Haze Cutter. Alto immediately countered by summoning his armaments, calling forth King's Key Sigurd and the Annihilation Sword Rhodes. The two clashed at incredible speed, their weapons colliding again and again as shockwaves rippled through the air. Rex struggled internally, unable to believe that a summoner could keep up with this level of speed. Alto admitted with a laugh that he was barely hanging on. Rex shouted at him to shut up as they continued their high-speed exchange, explaining that once a summoner let someone get this close, it was usually game over. Their blades continued to collide in rapid succession. Rex strained with the effort, realizing that he could not overpower Alto even in close-quarters combat. He knew that if he let his guard down for even a moment, he would be the one taken out. As he watched Alto's movements carefully, Rex thought to himself that this was practically cheating. Alto proved that he was a summoner capable of handling melee combat at the highest level. He activated his next technique, calling out Black Mist Second Blade, and unleashed Shadow Slash toward Rex. The Dark Blade technique tore through the air. Alto then activated Jade Key as he leaped down toward Rex with his summoned weapon. Rex grit his teeth and braced himself, refusing to let the attack land. The two collided with a massive impact, sending shockwaves blasting outward. Alto grinned and commented that Rex was being awfully reckless. Rex shot back, calling him an idiot and saying there was no way he would let Alto use a killer move that easily. Rex unleashed a powerful slash while Alto watched closely. Rex announced Heavenly Dragon Possession, declaring that he was finally getting warmed up. A massive celestial dragon manifested around his body, towering and imposing. Alto's eyes widened at the overwhelming display of power. Wrapped in draconic energy, Rex grinned confidently. Alto recognized the technique and remarked that Rex had learned how to channel Barotra, calling it incredible. Rex replied that Alto had guessed right, though he pointed out that he still had a 3-minute time limit. Alto questioned whether it was wise to reveal that weakness. Rex answered that he could not be the only one keeping his cards face down. Alto commented that Rex's absurdly serious side had not changed at all since the old days. Rex smirked and said he would take that as a compliment. Noting that they did not have much time left, Rex declared that he was coming and charged forward at unbelievable speed. Alto reacted to just how fast Rex was moving. Rex dove down from above, chaining dragon art techniques together at terrifying velocity. Alto hastily summoned his defensive equipment, calling out Armament Summon, Shield of Cherubim. A massive shield materialized in front of him, embedded with multiple swords as he braced for impact. Alto's eyes widened as he realized what was coming. Rex grinned fiercely and warned him not to underestimate a Dragon King's strike. Alto muttered that Rex had to be kidding him. In the next instant, Rex unleashed Dragon Art, nation-rending spear, a devastating attack that crashed down with overwhelming force. As the dust settled, Alto winced and remarked that it hurt. He admitted that it was not too bad, though. From the sidelines, Stella and Rune watched closely, one unable to believe what she was seeing, the other shocked that Alto had actually been wounded. Alto straightened himself, standing tall, while Rex declared that he was not finished yet. Alto activated instant XYZ multiplication summon. Rex stared in confusion as the technique unfolded. First, a simple slime appeared. Then a large, cheerful slime face manifested. In the next moment, the slimes began multiplying rapidly across the battlefield, their numbers increasing one after another in sequence. Surrounded by an army of summoned slimes, Alto charged forward. Rex grit his teeth and cursed in frustration as the slimes continued pouring in without end, swarming across the field toward him. Alto confirmed to himself that the technique was working well and decided to use the opening to create distance. Rex, however, had no intention of letting him escape. He unleashed Dragon Tech, Crimson Flash, causing a massive eruption of Crimson Dragon energy to explode across the battlefield. Alto's eyes widened as he attempted to retreat in the face of the sudden counterattack. Rex dove in with his weapon raised, aiming straight for Alto. He declared that he had known Alto would stall for time with multiplication summons and hide behind cover, adding that he had studied Alto's behavior patterns thoroughly. The attack crashed down as Rex unleashed Secret Dragon Technique, Dragon King Slash, shouting that it was over. Alto immediately countered. He activated Eye Technique, Infinite Binding Chain, saying that he had expected Rex to read that move. The power manifested through Void Crow's Demon Eye as mystical chains burst forth and completely bound Rex. Rex reacted in shock, wondering when Alto had performed a partial summon. He was slammed to the ground, restrained, cursing as he struggled against the bindings. Alto stood over him, victorious. From the sidelines, Stella and Rune watched. Stella declared that Rex was no longer able to continue the battle, and that the winner had been decided. The winner was Alto. He exhaled deeply and admitted that he was exhausted. The group regrouped and began walking together. Rex muttered in frustration about the outcome. Stella tallied the record at 0 wins and 18 losses, once again noting just how seriously strong Alto was. Stella commented that overwhelming Rex like that was exactly what she expected from Alto. Rex asked whether that had really been Alto's first battle in a year, remarking that he felt even faster than before. Alto explained that he had at least kept up with the bare minimum of training, and that was probably why he performed so well. The group walked through the city beneath the night sky, stars shining overhead. Stella thanked Alto for walking her home. When they reached the point where they would part ways, the three exchanged their goodbyes. They wished Alto good night, suggested meeting again soon, and declared that from now on, they were fellow adventurers. Alto waved as they separated for the evening. Alto said that he would head home as well. Smiling, he called out to summon his wyvern. He mounted the creature and took off into the night, the dragon soaring through the sky, its silhouette sharply outlined against the full moon as they flew home. The next day, Alto stood beside a fountain in a large plaza. The area was lively, with people walking through the tree-lined space. Stella called out his name. She asked whether Alto had been waiting long. He replied that he had just arrived himself. Stella said she was relieved and suggested that they head straight to guild headquarters. Alto agreed without hesitation. This was the Adventurers Guild headquarters, the very heart of it all. Today, Alto was going to register for the adventurer exam. He reflected that it had taken a long time to reach this point, but now he could finally move forward. The two of them began walking together. He had given up once before, but this moment marked his first true step toward becoming an adventurer. After being fired from his job as a guild staffer, Alto is on his way to guild headquarters to register as an adventurer. As they walk, Stella calls out to him and points ahead, announcing that they have arrived at headquarters. While walking together, Stella starts to say something, opening with a casual remark before hesitating. She admits that she has been wondering about something. They step into what appears to be a lounge area. Alto asks what she meant earlier, referring to when she said she was wondering about something. Stella begins explaining her thoughts, noting his slender yet well-toned muscles, his stance that hides his center of gravity, and above all, his refined and massive magical power. Alto is impressed and remarks that it is just as he would expect from Stella. He adds that she seems to have grown even stronger over the past year. Stella smiles and thanks him. Alto immediately wonders if he said something strange. Stella responds that he has always been dense. Alto brushes it off and suggests that they head further into the guild headquarters. As they continue walking, something suddenly occurs to him. He realizes that Stella has been working as an unaffiliated solo adventurer. Stella abruptly stops herself mid-sentence, starting to say something about when she welcomed him, before insisting that it is nothing. She hurriedly tells him to forget what she just said. Internally, she panics at the thought that she nearly revealed the truth, that she had stayed single all this time so Alto would not feel left out when she finally welcomed him into a party. Even she realizes that would be far too heavy to confess outright. They arrive before the massive guild headquarters building. Alto takes in the sight of the adventurer's main stronghold, overwhelmed by its presence. Noticing Stella's expression, he asks if something is wrong. Stella admits that she completely forgot about something. Alto asks what it is. She explains that today is the General Assembly. Alto repeats the term, unsure of what it means. Stella explains that it is an event held once every 6 months at guild headquarters, where major sponsors are invited and reports on dungeon conquest progress are presented. She goes on to explain that the people attending are the ultra-elite, including high-ranking nobles and wealthy merchants. Stella warns Alto that if he draws their attention, things could become very complicated. She firmly tells him that no matter what happens, he must not cause a scene. Alto nervously agrees, saying he understands and promising to be careful. The two of them stand together in the hallway of guild headquarters as the weight of the situation settles in. Inside the guild lounge area, adventurers are scattered throughout different sections of the building. Alto observes that for such a grand general meeting, the atmosphere feels surprisingly ordinary. Stella responds that all the troublesome people are probably upstairs, busy rubbing shoulders with one another. Stella tells Alto that this is their chance and urges him to hurry so they can finish the exam registration. Alto begins to respond when a cheerful woman with twin tails suddenly appears in front of them. The woman excitedly exclaims how happy she is to see her beloved Stella, interrupting them both. Alto looks at the woman and feels as though he has seen her somewhere before. Stella lets out a sigh filled with clear annoyance and mutters that it is Powell again. Alto immediately understands. The woman is Powell Ramakot, an up-and-coming B-rank adventurer known for possessing an extraordinary amount of magical power. Despite it being broad daylight, Powell is clearly drunk, with a strong stench of alcohol surrounding her. She repeatedly calls out to Stella, telling her to stop being a lonely solo adventurer and to join their party already. Powell casually mentions that while the boss is a bit scary, it is apparently a fun group to be part of. Stella has already turned Powell down more than 10 times, yet Powell never seems to learn. Stella firmly reiterates that, as she has told Powell many times before, she already has a partner to whom she has devoted her heart. She then declares that since they are already here, she will introduce that person now. Stella announces that she is forming a party with Alto Reese and tells Powell to stop asking her. Powell tries to interrupt in confusion, unable to understand what she is hearing. She shouts back, questioning whether Stella can possibly be serious. Shocked, Powell protests that she, the so-called super genius adventurer, has invited Stella countless times, yet Stella is choosing someone else instead. Powell continues her outburst, declaring that Alto has no ambition at all and accusing Stella of teaming up with a weakling who barely has any magical power. She insists that Stella must have lost her mind. Alto and Stella remain standing there as Powell rants at them. Stella firmly declares that Alto belongs with her. She snaps back sharply, demanding to know whether Powell just called him a weakling. Stella continues, telling everyone to listen. She explains that Alto is kind and always tries not to cause trouble for the people around him. She adds that he is constantly suppressing his magic. Nearby, someone asks what all the commotion is about. A commanding voice cuts through the noise. An imposing bald man dressed in formal robes appears, stating that today is the Grand Assembly and reminding everyone that he strictly ordered them to refrain from pointless squabbling. Alto immediately recognizes him as Mr. Dwight Dumble and is struck by the realization that he is seeing the real thing in person. Powell attempts to plead her case, telling Mr. Dwight to listen and complaining that this dull-looking, snot-nosed brat is trying to form a party with her cute Stella. She insists that Alto is completely out of Stella's league and declares that there is no way she will allow him to party up with her. Dwight lets out a weary sigh and wonders aloud what he should do with Powell. He turns to Alto and apologizes for the trouble caused by a member of his party, promising to reprimand Powell severely later. Before he can finish, Dwight suddenly activates a technique. There is a flash of movement as the words puppet ninjutsu echo, and a sacrifice substitution is triggered. Stella reacts in surprise while Alto looks on in confusion at the sudden development, quickly realizing that Powell is no longer standing beside them. A puppet doll floats in the air where Powell had been moments earlier. Alto analyzes what just happened and recognizes it as a technique that swaps the coordinates of two targets that were marked in advance. Powell's voice can be heard from wherever she was sent, complaining that it takes months to make even one of those substitution dolls and questioning why Dwight would waste such a technique here of all places. Dwight continues addressing the situation, stating that Powell has committed a grave discourtesy. He remarks that while she is a talented adventurer, she is still only half a man, clearly pointing out her immaturity. He asks everyone to overlook the incident out of respect for him. Then he sharply calls Powell's name and orders her to apologize to that boy immediately. Powell protests from her new location, saying she does not understand the situation at all and questioning why she should have to apologize. Dwight sternly orders her to stop arguing and apologize at once, his expression showing that he has reached the limit of his patience. Powell finally gives in and agrees, admitting that she went a bit too far. Alto quickly tells everyone not to worry about it. After leaving the lounge, Alto asks what that whole incident was about. Stella admits that she does not really know either. She brushes it off, telling him to forget about it since the reception area is over there and they should move on. She adds that this is exactly like Dwight, acknowledging how perceptive he is. Quietly, Stella reflects on the situation, noting that judging by Dwight's reaction, he must have sensed it. She realizes what he likely noticed, the terrifying, immense magical power sleeping deep within Alto. The scene shifts to the registration desk. A cheerful female guild staff member informs Alto that his application for the adventurer registration exam has been successfully received. She reminds him not to forget to bring his admission ticket on the day of the exam. Inside the Grand Guild headquarters, Alto and Stella notice several figures who immediately stand out as important. Alto spots them and quietly asks Stella if those people are who he thinks they are. Stella groans, calling it the worst possible situation, and identifies them as patrons of the Adventurers Guild. She warns Alto that no matter what he does, he must not make eye contact with them. She explains that there is no telling what kind of trouble they might cause if they take an interest. Alto acknowledges the warning and agrees to be careful. Despite that, one of the patrons suddenly calls out to him, asking whether he might be Sir Alto. Alto freezes as the group approaches. He recognizes one of them and reacts in shock upon seeing Mr. Abura there. Abura grows excited, confirming that it really is Sir Alto, and remarking that it is rare to see him at headquarters. Mr. Abura asks whether Alto's next assignment is at headquarters. Alto looks uneasy and tries to explain that it is not quite like that. Another patron, Shalti, chimes in, commenting that moving from a C-rank guild to working at headquarters is impressive and addressing him as Master Alto. A third patron, Baroque, adds that Alto rising in the world is clearly worth celebrating and suggests holding a grand party at their residence. Mr. Abura enthusiastically agrees, calling it a splendid idea to celebrate Alto's promotion. Baroque adds that their household would be delighted to take part as well. Stella watches in confusion, wondering what is happening, and asks Alto what kind of relationship he has with these people. Alto explains that when he worked at the Noble's Garden, everyone treated him very well. He describes them as extremely nice people. Stella laughs knowingly and questions just how nice they really are. The scene then reveals the true identities of the three patrons with ominous introductions. Abila Urd is known as the Dark Oil Baron. Shaltitrite is called the Blood-Soaked Noblewoman. Baroque Lemeron is infamous as the Ruthless Tycoon. Stella comments that these people are nothing more than major figures from the underworld, the kind who could silence a crying child without hesitation. She adds that it makes sense, since there is no way Alto could have worked a normal job for an entire year without standing out. Mr. Abura steps closer and asks Alto to decide on a date for the party. Alto attempts to respond, starting to explain with a hesitant remark, but he is cut off. Abura tells him there is no need to hold back and emotionally declares that he owes Alto a debt of gratitude that can never truly be repaid. The patrons continue recounting their stories. Abula explains that they only managed to strike oil in the dangerous Venatora oil fields because Alto lent them his legions from the lower flame hell. Another dramatic moment reveals Shalti's gratitude, as it is shown that Alto's miraculous summoning saved her beloved son from an incurable disease. She says she can never thank him enough. Baroque adds that Alto's summoned beast has saved their lives countless times and declares that celebrating Alto's promotion is now their family's highest priority. Overwhelmed by the sudden attention, Alto asks if he can have a moment. He tries to speak, saying that he truly appreciates everyone's feelings. The group reacts in shock. Baroque repeats what he believes he just heard. Someone mentions that Lord Alto was fired. The news spreads rapidly among the patrons. It all happened so suddenly, and the atmosphere immediately turns tense. People begin murmuring among themselves. Alto asks if he said something strange. Abula comments that this acquaintance of Alto's is someone capable of silencing even a crying child, and says they simply cannot believe that Sir Alto was fired. Alto tries to explain, stating that he cannot go into too much detail. It becomes clear that Alto ended up getting on the guild master's bad side. Abula recalls that there was someone like that. The patrons begin discussing the guild master's background. Chaltitrite adds that frumpy bumpkin detail, struggling to remember his name, and guessing it might have been something like Des or Poncho, though not quite right. Baroque explains that he was merely a viscount governing some third or fourth-rate land in the Arabs district. Baroque remarks that the guild master was nothing more than a mere viscount who acted far too high and mighty. Abula suddenly announces that they have just remembered some urgent business and will be taking their leave. The group begins to depart. Stella mentions the Garden of Nobles and notes that it is finally over. Back at the Nobles Garden Guild building, Desmond sits alone drinking wine. He declares that the taste of wine chugged on the job is irresistible, calling it the taste of immorality. He continues drinking and laughing, recalling Alto's pathetic expression when he was fired with immense satisfaction. He says he cannot help but laugh every time he thinks back on it. Desmond proudly declares that now that they have kicked out those peasants, Noble's Garden has regained its former glory. He goes on to boast that in 6 months they will finally achieve the B-rank guild promotion he has always dreamed of. Suddenly, a staff member bursts into the room shouting that it is a disaster. Desmond tries to maintain his composure, asking what the matter is and reminding Baron Hard that a noble must remain elegant at all times. The staff member stammers nervously. The staff member reports that Lord Abura, Lady Chaltitrite, and Lord Baroque have arrived and are demanding to terminate their adventurer contract with Noble's Garden. Desmond reacts in complete shock, demanding to know what this is supposed to mean. He insists that their relationship with those patrons was in excellent standing and explains that they had just extended their contract the other day, making the situation impossible to understand. The staff member adds that he sensed an extraordinary amount of rage coming from them and urges Desmond to go to the reception room immediately. Desmond reluctantly agrees. The scene shifts to the reception room, where the 3 noble patrons stand, radiating an intimidating presence. Desmond nervously attempts to lighten the mood, commenting on what a delightful day it is and how pleasant the weather seems. Abula addresses him formally as Lord Desmond Taylor. Desmond responds stiffly. Abula states that he heard Desmond fired an employee named Alto Reese and asks whether that story is true. Desmond responds that, as expected of Abula, he has sharp ears. Chaltitrite adds that the peasant was a blight that tarnished the dignity of the guild. Desmond confirms that he did indeed fire Alto just yesterday. In the very next breath, Desmond praises how wonderful the air feels now and gestures at how much things have improved. Abula immediately explodes in anger, calling Desmond a fool. His face fills the scene as he shouts that Desmond is an utter fool. Abula declares that Desmond is the truly incompetent one and demands to know whether Desmond has any idea just how precious Lord Alto's summoning magic is. He questions whether Desmond has ever even tried thinking with that empty head of his. Desmond stammers helplessly. Desmond tries to explain that he is ashamed to admit it, but he is a complete layman when it comes to magic. Chaltitrite cuts him off dismissively. The patrons press him from all sides. Chaltitrite states that her beloved son had been eagerly looking forward to Professor Alto's introductory course on summoning magic and demands to know how Desmond intends to make this right. Desmond hurriedly offers to arrange for an even more excellent summoner right away. Chaltitrite immediately counters that there is no way many summoners exist who are better than Professor Alto. As the pressure continues to mount, Desmond bows repeatedly, apologizing profusely. Baroque steps forward and urges both sides to calm down. He suggests that they first hear what Mr. Desmond has to say. Desmond looks visibly relieved by the intervention. Baroque admits that it seems unlikely, but wonders why Desmond would do such a thing in the first place. He suggests there may have been some justifiable reason to fire Alto, perhaps that Alto was not working sincerely behind the scenes, or that he committed some serious mistake. Desmond responds by stating that Alto worked harder and more earnestly than anyone else. Baroque asks whether Alto made any particular mistakes. When Desmond offers no such explanation, Baroque presses further and demands to know why he fired him. Desmond suddenly shouts his answer defiantly, declaring that Alto Reese was fired simply because he was born a peasant. The room falls completely silent. Desmond and Chaltitrite face each other as her expression hardens with rage. She declares that this is nothing short of wrongful termination. In a burst of anger, she lunges forward and grabs Desmond, calling him a fool. She demands to know how long he plans to coast on the status of the aristocracy and firmly states that a person's birth holds no real significance. Chaltitrike continues, crushing Desmond's pride by declaring that from their perspective, he is nothing more than a third-rate viscount who could be blown away with a single breath. Desmond stammers in disbelief, his face frozen in shock at being labeled a third-rate viscount. Abula steps in and delivers an ultimatum. He states that unless Desmond offers a sincere apology to Lord Alto and personally obtains his forgiveness, they will never make use of Noble's Garden again. Desmond's eyes widen in panic as he begs Abula to reconsider. Baroque coldly asks what value this guild even has without Sir Alto. He demands that Desmond apologize to Alto first, stating that only then will there be anything left to discuss. The scene shifts to nighttime at a grand mansion. Desmond returns home utterly exhausted and orders his servants not to let anyone into his bedroom, saying he intends to lie down for a while. The servants acknowledge his command. Desmond collapses onto his bed. After a brief moment of silence, his rage explodes. He begins cursing repeatedly, screaming insults about Alto being a peasant-born brat, his anger echoing through the room. He continues raging, demanding to know what kind of underhanded trick Alto used to deceive Abula and the others. His fury keeps building as the curses spill out non-stop. He bitterly questions what he did wrong and why everything turned out this way. A servant interrupts, reporting that there is an urgent call from Lord Ragan. Desmond questions whether the call is truly from Lord Ragan, his irritation clear before the name fully registered. He tells the servant to put the call through. The moment the call connects, Lord Ragan's voice erupts through the phone, furiously demanding to know what Desmond did. Desmond freezes in shock and stammers, asking what he means. Lord Raven continues, stating that they have just received word from the upper management of the Adventurers Guild. Raven explains that the planned promotion of Noble's Garden to a B-rank guild has been completely scrapped. Desmond processes the news in stunned silence. His thoughts spiral as he mutters that there can be no mistake about who is responsible, concluding that it must be that sewer rat again. His bitterness erupts as he complains that even after looking after Alto for an entire year, Alto turned around and bit the hand that fed him. Lord Ragan repeats the name Alto Reese, remarking that it sounds familiar. He dismissively describes Alto as nothing more than a peasant-born piece of trash they once kept around like a pet. After a brief pause, he suddenly recalls the boy. Lord Ragan then asks whether Alto is currently going through the adventure registration exam process at guild headquarters today. Desmond reacts in alarm and desperately warns him that Alto is the embodiment of evil and must never be allowed to become an adventurer. Lord Raven responds in surprise as Desmond continues his frantic explanation, claiming that Alto is a genius at flattering the powerful and worming his way into their favor. Desmond insists that if a parasite like Alto is allowed to become an adventurer, he will rot the guild from the inside out, and that clearing dungeons will become the least of their concerns. Lord Ragan considers this carefully. After a moment, he questions whether Alto truly is the kind of man Desmond claims. Then, after a brief pause, he acknowledges that he understands. Lord Ragan states coldly that on the day Alto takes the exam, he will assign an examiner under his direct influence and make certain that Alto fails. Desmond bursts into manic laughter, gloating that this spells the end for Alto. In his twisted satisfaction, he reflects that when one curses another, they end up digging two graves. The day of the adventurer exam finally arrives. Alto and Stella arrive at the guild headquarters in the royal capital to enter the examination venue. Alto apologizes to Stella for dragging her along, recognizing that this is where the first step begins. Stella tells Alto not to worry about it, saying they are close enough that it does not matter. She feels relieved, thinking to herself that she likes this situation because it feels like a date with just the two of them. Outside the guild headquarters, Stella encourages Alto, telling him that he will be absolutely fine and wishing him good luck. Alto thanks her before heading inside. Alto enters the examination venue, which is packed with tough-looking adventurer candidates gathered in a space resembling an arena. He surveys the scene and notes how intimidating everyone appears. An examiner checks whether all the examinees are present. The examiner announces that the adventurer exam will now begin, but adds that there is one thing to address beforehand. The candidates react with visible confusion. The examiner calls out examinee number 17, asking whether Alto Wraith is present. Alto steps forward and confirms that he is. The examiner informs Alto that he will be taking the exam in a separate room and instructs him to proceed to the underground training grounds. Alto processes the unusual situation, wondering why he alone is being singled out. Alto heads down to the designated area and responds politely. From within the darkness, a voice asks whether he is Alto Wraith. A tall, imposing man wearing sunglasses steps forward and introduces himself as Hemmos Luxus, the court summoner, stating that he will be overseeing Alto's examination. He greets Alto casually and mentions that Lord Ragan described Alto as a dangerous element, adding that they are counting on him. Hemmos studies Alto closely. Almost immediately, Hemmos judges Alto to be hopeless, declaring that he can tell at a glance that Alto possesses feeble magic power and absolutely no talent as a summoner. He remarks that with abilities this weak, Alto would not even pass a normal exam. Alto asks whether something is wrong. Hemmos brushes it off, telling him not to worry, while internally thinking that this is a complete waste of time and that there was no reason for him to come personally. He then states that they will begin the test at once. Hemmos explains that the exam will judge both the quality and quantity of Alto's summoned beasts. He adds that if Alto can surpass the standard he has set, he will pass him immediately. Alto asks whether that is truly the case. Hemmos confirms it, stating that a man never goes back on his word. Hemmos announces that the first test will be a test of quantity. He explains that they will measure how many summons Alto can maintain simultaneously. The instructions are simple. Alto is to summon a low-level beast that consumes little mana, apply a multiplication formula to it, and continue multiplying the summons for as long as his mana lasts. Alto agrees and begins the summoning as Hemmos tells him to proceed. Alto summons a simple slime creature and starts multiplying it. Hemmos watches as the number quickly surpasses 100. The slimes begin duplicating rapidly across the training ground, the multiplication accelerating without pause. Hemmos stares in disbelief as the count reaches 1,000, then 10,000, struggling to comprehend what he is witnessing. The slimes continue multiplying at an overwhelming rate, soon filling the entire underground training area. Alto and Hemmos are completely surrounded by the massive swarm. Hemmos shouts for Alto to stop immediately. Alto dispels the summons at once. He himself cannot fully grasp the numbers or the terrifying speed of the multiplication. Hemmos is left sweating and shaken, internally realizing that he had nearly been crushed to death. Noticing Hemmos' distressed state, Alto asks if he is all right. Hemmos hastily regains his composure, insists that there is no problem, and then asks Alto another question. Hemmos asks what the maximum number would have been if Alto had not released the multiplication technique earlier. Alto considers the question carefully. He thinks that reaching 100 quintillion would not have been a problem at all, easily surpassing 1 trillion and even 1 quadrillion. The scale of numbers runs through his mind, climbing from tens to hundreds of quintillions. Hemmos can only respond with a weak acknowledgement. Hemmos processes what he has just witnessed. He cannot believe Alto's claim of 100 quintillion, telling himself that there is no way a multiplication summon like that should exist, yet he saw it with his own eyes, and the result is undeniable. More than anything else, Alto does not appear to be lying. Hemmos stares at him in disbelief, wondering just who this boy really is. Alto asks how the quantity exam went. Hemmos tries to play it off calmly, saying it was fine, he supposes. He adds that when he was Alto's age, he could summon a much larger quantity, but admits that it is fair to say Alto has cleared the minimum requirement. Alto feels relieved and thanks him. Hemmos then announces that they will move on to the test of quality. He looks at Alto and remarks that Alto is far more capable than he had heard. Hemmos notes that while Alto's mana remains feeble, the sharpness of his technique is outstanding. He observes that there is no doubt Alto is a mage of exceptional skill. Alto asks how they should proceed with the quality test. Hemmos decides on his approach, concluding that the answer is simple. He plans to force Alto to summon a powerful beast with a high mana cost, believing that this will easily expose Alto's weakness. Hemmos announces that the role of a summoner requires the ability to control a wide variety of summoned beasts. As an example, he brings up a wyvern. He expects Alto to struggle with summoning such a powerful creature that dances through the heavens. Instead, Alto calmly calls for the wyvern to appear. In the next instant, multiple wyverns materialize within the underground training area. Hemmos continues pushing, thinking that an enemy could even be underwater. In such a case, a high-ranking water spirit would be necessary. Alto asks whether Undine would be acceptable. A massive high-ranking water spirit manifests immediately, releasing overwhelming power throughout the area. Hemmos is left stunned by the sight. Hemmos presses on with his internal testing strategy, thinking about how scorching lava zones are commonly found in dungeons. To traverse such harsh terrain, a sturdy rock cave doll would be required. Alto casually apologizes for a moment and calls out his golem. an enormous rock golem rises from the ground, towering over the training area. All of the summoned beings gather around Alto within the underground training ground. Hemos stands frozen in shock, sweat running down his face as he takes in the scene. The wyvern that rules the skies, Undine of the four great spirits, and the massive golem that consumes enormous amounts of mana are all present at once. What shocks him most is that Alto summoned them all without chanting. After hesitating briefly, Hemos suggests that they move on to something else. Trying to save face, he grudgingly admits that Alto's performance was not bad. Hemos explains that since Alto has cleared both the quality and quantity tests, there is still another step remaining. Alto immediately realizes what this implies. Hemos announces dramatically that from this moment onward, the final exam begins. Alto is confused by the sudden turn of events. Hemos declares that he already knows what Alto is thinking, but insists that if Alto wishes to become an adventurer, he must defeat the royal summoner, Hemos Luxus. Alto attempts to point out the contradiction, asking about the earlier statement that he would pass if he cleared the tests of quality and quantity. Hemos claims he knows nothing about that. Alto presses further, bringing up Hemos's remark about a man never going back on his word. Hemos dismisses that as well, saying he knows nothing about it either. Alto realizes that arguing further is pointless and accepts the situation as it is. The two stand facing each other on the cracked training ground. Hemos admits to himself that the situation is infuriating, yet he has no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Alto Reis is a summoner with natural-born talent. His mastery of summoning magic has already slightly surpassed even Hemos's own abilities. Hemos's expression hardens with determination as he declares inwardly that this is not the end. Hemos announces that he now possesses a treasure bestowed upon him by Lord Ragan. Alto immediately recognizes the object in Hemos's hand as a sealing crystal. Hemos declares that what follows is the weaving of supreme summoning magic. As the crystal begins to glow with intense power, Hemos commands Alto to witness his ultimate summoned beast. The sealing crystal activates, and from within it emerges an armored warrior shrouded in flame and shadow. Hemos announces the identity of his summon, revealing that it is Loctus, the loyal vassal of Old, the flame demon who rules the lowest depths of hell. He explains that Loctus is a legendary master swordsman, said to have defeated the archangel Michaelis. In response, Alto calmly calls out, directly addressing Old and telling him to come forth. A massive flame demon named Olg manifests before them. Loctus immediately addresses him with deep respect, calling him Lord Olgu, and stating that it is a profound honor to meet him in the afterlife. Olg acknowledges the situation, remarking that it is indeed a rare occurrence. Olg then asks whether they should cross blades. Loctus reacts in shock, responding that such a thing must be a joke. Loctus stammers in disbelief, questioning how he could ever point a blade at someone like Olg. That is simply how things stand. Loctus turns his attention to Hemos, addressing him as a nameless summoner and offering an apology as he declares that he must reject this summoning. Hemos is left stunned by the rejection, completely unable to process what is happening before him. Alto awkwardly asks what they should do about the final exam now. Hemos remains frozen on the cracked training ground, utterly at a loss for words. At last, Hemos admits defeat, acknowledging that even the court summoners are powerless to stop a monster like Alto Reis. With no other choice remaining, he declares that Alto has passed the exam. Alto stands there in shock for a moment before his expression breaks into gratitude. He thanks them repeatedly for passing him. Stella comes running toward him, clearly excited by the news. Stella reaches Alto, and the two share a joyful moment together, her arms spread wide with happiness. Later, inside the Grand Estate building, Desmond is left in shock upon seeing Alto's result. Desmond seethes as he curses how that damn Lagan ruined everything, questioning why Alto of all people managed to pass. Nearby, a post-it list clearly displays the names of those who passed the adventurer exam, with Alto's name written among them. Desmond growls Alto Reis's full name in fury, swearing that he will never forgive him and declaring that Alto should simply wait for what comes next. The day after passing the adventurer exam, Alto and his mother are outside doing yard work with rakes. His mother remarks that she is tired. While Alto judges that they have done about the right amount of work, she then calls out to him. Alto's mother tells him that a letter arrived for him, and that she left it on his desk. As Alto heads inside to check, he wonders who it could be from. He picks up the letter and sees that it is from Desmond Taylor, which completely catches him off guard. That same morning, at the Desmond estate, Desmond lets out a heavy sigh. He sits there troubled, muttering that it is a terrible way to wake up. Not only has Alto passed the exam, but Desmond has not heard a single word from Lagan about what happened afterward. No matter how he thinks about it, he cannot understand what is going on. At the estate, a servant brings Desmond the morning paper. Looking exhausted, Desmond asks if there is any interesting news. As he opens the paper, his eyes widen in shock. Printed on the page is an official announcement featuring the bald examiner's face. Desmond cries out in disbelief, insisting it is impossible and questioning why Laven would do this. The article explains that illegal monetary transactions have been discovered within certain guilds, and that the Guild Audit Division has begun investigating the truth and pursuing further charges. As Desmond reads on, his face turns pale, realizing just how serious the situation is. The article states that Noble's Garden has been paying bribes to Largen in order to be promoted to a C-rank guild. Panic grips Desmond as he realizes that at this rate, even he could be implicated. Clutching his face, he wonders how things ended up like this. In his mind, he identifies Alto as the source of all his problems. Desmond becomes convinced that Alto is once again pulling the strings behind the scenes. He rages over how a mere commoner like Alto could have gained this much influence. Realizing they must act immediately, Desmond understands that if this continues, Noble's Garden will suffer and House Taylor will be ruined. Desperately, he searches for any plan that might save them. His thoughts return to a moment when Baroque questioned what value the guild even had without Lord Alto. Baroque advised that Desmond should first apologize to Alto, and only then discuss matters further. The idea enrages Desmond. As a noble of the highest lineage, one of the chosen, the thought of bowing his head to a lowly peasant is unbearable humiliation. He curses in fury as the other person responds reluctantly. Now Alto holds the letter from Desmond. It reads that Desmond has something very important to discuss and asks Alto to come to Noble's Garden. Seeing it begin with the words, "Dear Alto," Alto questions how Desmond could write something like this after treating him so horribly. He recalls that he never even returned his guild uniform, having stormed out in frustration without taking his belongings. Deciding that it cannot be helped, Alto resolves to go, if only to show his face. Alto arrives at the Grand Noble's Garden estate and stands before the ornate mansion. Steeling himself, he thinks that he should just get this depressing errand over with and return home. Desmond greets him by throwing his arms wide in an exaggerated show of welcome. He warmly expresses how long it has been and how glad he is that Alto came. Alto's face fills with pure shock and confusion at this sudden change in attitude. Alto is seated on an ornate couch as Desmond has tea and sweets brought out. A beautiful strawberry daifuku from the famous Kifukute shop is placed before him. Desmond cheerfully explains that it would be poor manners not to offer at least a small refreshment after Alto came all this way. Alto stares at the expensive sweet with a complicated expression. Desmond continues urging him to eat, asking what is wrong. Alto finally speaks up carefully, addressing Desmond and asking if he remembers something. His expression turns serious as he points out that these are the very sweets he was strictly forbidden from eating before. Desmond's face twists with panic and distress as Alto looks at him with cold, knowing eyes. The scene shifts to a memory from the past, a guild welcome party held at Noble's Garden. In the grand hall, a banner reading "New Employee Welcome Party" hangs overhead while staff members gather around tables filled with food. Alto stands apart from everyone else, staring at a table of refreshments he was never permitted to touch. Back then, Desmond erupted in outrage, demanding to know why such high-quality sweets were being served to a peasant. He declared that wild grass was more than enough for someone like Alto, and that serving him such food was a complete waste. The memory fades as Alto's expression hardens in the present. He stops Desmond and states that regarding that matter, the answer is no. He makes it clear that he did not come here today to have a discussion with him. Keeping his composure, Alto excuses himself and begins to walk away. Desmond watches him go, his face contorting with desperation and panic. As Alto moves toward the exit, memories of Desmond's past cruelty surface in his mind, images of how he was treated during his time at Noble's Garden. Unable to bear it any longer, Desmond completely breaks down and bows low to the ground. He cries out that he was wrong, begging Alto for forgiveness and pleading desperately. Alto freezes in shock, staring at the sight before him and questioning what Desmond is even doing. Desmond continues his frantic plea, admitting that he has no right to ask. Even so, he begs Alto to return and work at Noble's Garden once more. He explains that ever since Alto left, the guild's management has fallen into complete disarray, and he desperately asks Alto to lend him his strength. Alto finally gives his answer. He tells Desmond that he will never return, having already decided to live his life as an adventurer. Desmond's eyes widen in shock and desperation. In a panic, he tries another approach, asking if Alto could at least continue the summoned beast rentals and the summoning magic lectures. Alto firmly declines. Alto explains that summoned beasts are not a consumable resource and questions why Desmond would expect endless use. Desmond insists that Alto may not realize it, but the lectures were only once a week. Alto continues, explaining that maintaining a summoned beast's connection to this world requires a considerable amount of magical power. Adventurers constantly face death and must maintain peak condition, and once someone enters a dungeon, it is not unusual to be gone for weeks. Because of that, holding weekly lectures is simply impossible. Still bowed low to the ground, Desmond desperately asks if Alto can at least pull some strings with the higher-ups. Alto stands there, completely stunned by the request. He asks what Desmond even means by higher-ups and pulling strings, pointing out that Desmond is acting strangely and questioning what he is talking about. Alto's confusion is unmistakable. At that moment, Desmond completely snaps. His face twists with rage as he screams at Alto, hurling insults and accusing him of inciting Abura and the others to ruin his superior's life. He claims Alto must feel incredible about it and mocks him with bitter fury. Desmond's anger reaches its peak. Alto calmly responds that Desmond is under a misunderstanding and states that he did nothing to incite Abura or anyone else. Desmond cuts him off, shouting at him to shut up and calling him a fraud. In his rage, Desmond stumbles and falls. Alto mocks him in return, asking if he is being serious. He reminds Desmond that he is still only a D-rank adventurer. Desmond scoffs, saying that D-rank is nothing more than an amateur with some experience and criticizes Alto for already acting like a full-fledged adventurer. Alto's eyes narrow as he stares at Desmond with a serious expression. Suddenly, someone bursts through the doorway behind Alto. Desmond reacts in shock, recognizing the man as Baron Harg and shouting that he was told not to enter without permission. Baron Harg charges into the office, but he is not alone. A group of armored figures, their forms dark and imposing, flood into the room behind him. Alto's eyes widen in shock at the sudden intrusion. Desmond stares at the newcomers and demands to know who they are. From the doorway, a voice addresses Desmond directly, asking if he is Desmond Taylor, the guild leader of Noble's Garden. She introduces herself as Remulos, creditor of the Adventurers Guild Audit Division. Remulos explains that suspicious remittances have been confirmed at this guild, which is why she has come to discuss the details. Remulos immediately notices the knife in Desmond's hand and questions him about it. Desmond hastily fumbles for an explanation, stammering that it is practice for a play. He claims he is scheduled to perform at an upcoming guild event and insists that he is quite confident in his acting skills, even going so far as to ask how his performance was. Remulos responds with a brief order to take him away. The armored guards immediately seize Desmond and begin dragging him out. Desmond shouts that this is all a misunderstanding and begs them to wait. As he is hauled away, Desmond yells that he was set up and blames everything on the peasant standing there, clearly referring to Alto. Remulos, or one of her guards, orders him to be quiet. Desmond continues to curse as he is forcibly removed from the office. Alto stands in the hallway, watching silently as the guards take Desmond away into the distance. Remulos then approaches Alto and remarks that he possesses a rare and seemingly powerful magic. She asks whether Alto would be interested in working for the Audit Division, explaining that they have been short-handed recently and that it has become a serious problem. Alto firmly declines the offer, stating that he is an adventurer. Remulos replies that it is unfortunate, but tells him that if he ever changes his mind, he is welcome to visit the Audit Division at any time. In the aftermath, Desmond Taylor is arrested on multiple charges, including bribery, embezzlement, and extortion, and is stripped of his title of Viscount. The C-rank guild Noble Garden is disbanded. Elsewhere, Dwight Dumble sits at his desk, thinking that it should be about time for Alto's adventure card to arrive. He reflects that this is only the beginning, but also Alto's true starting point as an adventurer. Wishing he had a proper gift to give him, something suddenly comes to mind, and Dwight realizes he has just the right thing. Later that night, Alto lies in bed holding his brand new D-rank adventurer card. His photo and name are printed clearly on it, and in the dim light of the room, he stares at it quietly, admiring the weight of the official proof in his hands. The next morning, Alto enters the kitchen and greets his mother. She returns the greeting, wishing him a good morning. As Alto walks further into the house, he notices an elderly man sitting at a desk. The man casually greets him. Alto responds with a good morning and addresses him as the principal, then freezes in confusion, clearly not having expected to see him there. Alto cries out in shock as the elderly man suddenly bows deeply to the floor. The text identifies him as Elm Trigueras, the principal of the Adventurer Academy. Moments later, the old man is calmly drinking something while Alto demands to know why he is in his house. The principal remarks that he heard Alto formed a party with Stella, commenting that Alto is as well informed as ever. He then adds, as usual, that Alto barely listens to a word he says. Sliding something across the desk, the principal tells Alto to take it. Alto asks what it is. The principal explains that there is a small expedition tomorrow, and that he has managed to squeeze the two of them into it as a graduation gift. Alto immediately protests, saying the principal cannot just decide something like that on his own. He is told that a kickoff meeting will be held at noon today at the A-Rank Adventure Guild, Silver Prison, so since they have the opportunity, they should go and show their faces. Before Alto can properly object, the principal cheerfully wishes him good luck and shoos him out. Alto tries to stop him and argue, but it is already too late. The scene shifts to Alto and Stella walking through town together. Alto explains how everything happened, remarking that the sage is as reckless as ever. Stella responds that it is a rare opportunity and that they should give it a try. She points out that being B rank, it is fine for her, though Alto hesitates, noting that he is still only D rank. Stella immediately questions what he is talking about, reminding him that he is a summoner powerful enough to completely crush Rex, a B rank adventurer. If Alto joins them, she says, the other adventurers will be relieved. Stella adds that if Alto performs well on the expedition, his guild evaluation should improve, making it a good chance for promotion. Alto points out that the principal, who usually downplays everything, actually used the word expedition this time. He admits that he has a bad feeling about it. Stella encourages him to be more confident in himself and, calling him strong, grabs his arm and pulls him along. Alto and Stella arrive at the A-Rank Adventure Guild, known as Silver Prison. Inside, a guild staff member greets them, welcoming Lord Alto and Lady Stella to Silver Prison. She explains that she has already been briefed on the situation. The staff member directs them to the stairs at the back, explaining that the expedition participants are gathering in the large underground training hall. Stella comments in surprise that the guild even has a basement. As they descend, Alto remarks that the scale is truly on another level for an A-rank guild. When they reach the underground hall, both of them stop in their tracks. From their position, they look down at an enormous gathering below. The full scale of the expedition becomes clear. The underground training hall is packed with what appears to be hundreds of adventurers, their silhouettes filling the entire space. Among the crowd are several high-profile figures. Kezran, a B-rank mage wearing elaborate robes and a decorated hat, stands prominently among the others. Nearby is Chalky, a B-rank tamer accompanied by his white beast. Harold, an A-rank knight clad in ornate armor, commands attention with his imposing presence. Alto observes that the hall is filled with famous adventurers, while Stella realizes that this expedition is far larger in scale than she had imagined. A cloaked figure steps forward at the front of the hall and addresses the gathered crowd. Alto's eyes widen as recognition hits him. The man before them is known as the Master Swordsman, who inherited the legendary demon-slaying sword, Gora. As the cloak is cast aside, a striking figure with long hair and refined features is revealed, Reinhard Oleg, the leader of the A-Rank Adventure Party Morning Star. Reinhard speaks to the massive assembly, expressing his gratitude to all the adventurers who have gathered here today. The air grows tense as his voice carries through the hall. Standing among the crowd, Alto and the others listen intently. Reinhard makes it clear that this expedition is a life-threatening mission of extreme danger. However, he also states that unless someone takes on this duty, humanity's greatest ambition, conquering the dungeon, will never be realized. Reinhard thanks everyone for their courage. Alto quietly reflects that even with such an overwhelming force assembled, they are still risking their lives. He notes how unusually honest Reinhard is being about the danger involved. As Reinhard begins to explain the outline and tactical objectives of the 4th dungeon expedition, a sudden shout interrupts him, demanding that he wait a moment. Murmurs ripple through the crowd as several adventurers recognize the newcomer. One points out that it is Ulfin. The caption introduces him as Ulfin Barorio, an A-rank adventurer from Venus. Another identifies him as the problem child of Venus, while someone else wonders what kind of trouble he is planning this time. Ulfin's voice cuts sharply through the noise as he asks whether anyone else has heard that a D-rank adventurer managed to sneak into this expedition. He continues by claiming that some worthless nobody is joining the mission. Shock spreads through the surrounding adventurers. Someone repeats the rank in disbelief, questioning whether that is even possible. Another points out that the requirement for participation was B rank or higher. One adventurer remarks that delusional people who overestimate their own strength tend to show up from time to time. Standing among them, Alto grows visibly uneasy as the attention starts to circle around him. Reinhard attempts to calm the situation, reminding Ulfin that he already explained this matter. He insists that Alto is special and that his participation comes by recommendation of the old master himself. Ulfin reacts with surprise at the mention, questioning whether it truly is the old master's recommendation. Even so, he remains unconvinced and dismissive, scoffing at the idea and deriding the words of what he calls a senile old man. Ulfin's voice rings out above the crowd as he calls Alto Reese by name, declaring that he knows Alto is hiding somewhere among them. He demands that Alto stop sneaking around and come forward. Realizing there is no point in hiding any longer, Alto thinks it would be better to reveal himself than draw further suspicion. Reluctantly, he raises his hand, exposing his position to the gathered adventurers. Ulfin immediately locks onto him and identifies him as Alto Reese. Alto notes to himself how quickly Ulfin moved to single him out. With a menacing grin, Ulfin begins laying out his philosophy. He claims that the most troublesome opponent in the world is not a capable enemy, but an incompetent ally. He presses further, demanding to know how Alto plans to take responsibility if someone like him drags everyone down and causes the Alliance party to collapse. Before the tension can escalate further, a commanding voice cuts in and orders Ulfin to stop. The imposing bald figure of Dwight steps forward, warning Ulfin to heed his advice and back off this time, or risk getting himself killed. Alto feels a wave of relief at Dwight's intervention and acknowledges his presence. Ulfin, however, questions whether Dwight is truly taking the side of a mere D-rank adventurer. Ulfin openly dismisses Dwight's authority, adding that he never wants to grow old like him. He remarks that Lord Dwight used to be impressive, but now he is nothing more than a senile old fool with rotten eyes. Dwight responds that he has given a fair warning and tells Ulfin to do as he pleases from here on. Feeling the pressure of the situation, Alto nervously tries to excuse himself, thinking that he clearly does not belong here and should just leave. However, the atmosphere makes it clear that he will not be allowed to walk away so easily. The tension finally boils over as Alto and Ulfin face each other directly, the confrontation hanging thick in the air. At that moment, Stella's voice cuts in sharply, pointing out that Ulfin has been running his mouth for far too long. She declares without hesitation that their Alto is far stronger than someone like Ulfin. Ulfin snaps at Powell, harshly telling her to be quiet and insulting her appearance, adding that someone like her has no right to speak to him since she is nothing more than B-rank trash. Stella reacts in shock at the insult, visibly taken aback by being called ugly. The situation quickly escalates as someone questions whether Ulfin is letting his A-rank status get to his head. Ulfin firmly asserts that there is an absolute, undeniable difference between heaven and earth when it comes to A-rank and B-rank adventurers. In the middle of the chaos, Alto stands frozen, completely overwhelmed by the argument erupting around him. A crowd of adventurers gathers to watch as Ulfin turns his attention to Alto and coldly declares that Alto is truly pathetic. The confrontation continues openly, with the entire guild hall bearing witness to the tension unfolding before them. Stella reacts in shock once again as Ulfin reveals a painful truth, stating that Alto was never able to properly inherit the magic of the Arnold family. At that moment, Alto finally speaks up, addressing Ulfin directly and calmly asking whether he would be willing to have a mock battle. Ulfin reacts with clear confusion and irritation at the suggestion. Stella looks both surprised and worried, urgently calling out to Alto. Alto explains that he believes a mock battle would settle many of the unresolved issues between them. Alto then openly proposes the challenge, questioning which of the two of them is truly stronger, himself or Ulfin. In response, Ulfin's expression twists into something murderous as he threatens that he will kill Alto. Alto declares that they should find out which of them is truly stronger. Ulfin questions whether Alto is really spouting such nonsense, despite knowing full well that he is the A-rank adventurer known as Ulfin of the Shadow Wolf. Alto responds without hesitation, affirming his stance. Ulfin answers back just as confidently, a smug smile spreading across his face. Ulfin laughs, calling the situation hilarious. He questions whether Alto has lost his mind, pointing out that a bottom-tier D-rank adventurer is challenging an A-rank like him. Alto stands there drenched in sweat, yet he refuses to back down. Alto speaks again, stating that he does not care what Ulfin says about him, before briefly pausing. Alto's expression hardens, turning serious and protective. He makes it clear that insulting him is one thing, but insulting Stella, someone precious to him, crosses a line. Stella watches anxiously from the side. Ulfin shouts that the guild hall is far too cramped and orders everyone to move elsewhere. Alto and the others watch as Ulfin forcefully takes control of the situation. An A-rank adventurer named Tilpina from the Morningstar party steps forward. A cheerful girl with twin tails appears and offers her teleportation services, stating that it will cost 300,000 gold per trip. Ulfin impatiently tells her to hurry up and do it. Tilpina thanks him enthusiastically, grinning at the business. Tilpina announces that she will skip the process and activates her magic with a hand gesture. Alto looks confused and asks what she means by skipping it. The scenery around Alto begins to warp and distort. He wonders what is happening as reality itself bends. His eyes widen in shock, and in the next instant he finds himself outside, confused by how fast it happened. Still disoriented, Alto asks where they are. Someone nearby shouts that they were supposed to be at the Grand Training Grounds. Alto quickly pieces things together and explains that everyone who was in the training grounds has been relocated. He recognizes the spell as magic capable of teleporting an entire area into another dimension. Alto confirms that this is high-level magic, exactly what one would expect from an A-rank adventurer like Tilpina. Reinhard explodes in anger, shouting at Tilt and demanding to know what she thinks she is doing by acting on her own. Tilt casually brushes it off with a smile, saying it looks like it will be fun. Reinhard clicks his tongue in frustration, cursing them all as idiots. Reinhard turns on Dwight, demanding to know why he is being stopped. Dwight calmly replies that there is no problem. He explains that the only thing they should hope for now is Ulfin's safety, because that is all that matters. Dwight then tells Powell to watch carefully and see what would have happened if he had not intervened earlier. Powell admits that she still believes Dwight is overestimating that brat. Even now, after sobering up, she says that Alto Race does not look like much of an adventurer. A vast plain stretches out between them. Alto stands on one side in the distance, while Ulfin waits on the other. Wind sweeps through the grass as the two prepare to clash. Ulfin shouts at Alto, ordering him to deploy his technique. Alto looks confused and asks what Ulfin means by that. Ulfin assumes a combat stance and announces that, in honor of Alto's reckless bravado, he will allow him to take the first shot. Ulfin continues, declaring that this single attack will be Alto's last. The moment Alto releases his spell, he will collapse miserably without ever laying eyes on Ulfin. He adds that if Alto is lucky, he will wake up in a hospital, but if not, he might even die. The tension between them hangs heavily across the plain. Alto calmly accepts the terms. He raises his hand and states that, if Ulfin does not mind, he will begin now. Ulfin looks on in confusion as Alto asks what is wrong and tells him to continue. Ulfin mocks him, questioning whether he is so scared that he cannot even mold mana. Alto calmly states that it is already over. Ulfin stammers in confusion, demanding to know what nonsense Alto is talking about. Alto repeats that it is already finished. Behind Ulfin, something enormous begins to materialize. A colossal creature towers over Ulfin, already fully summoned. Ulfin stares upward in complete shock at the enormous entity looming above him, finally grasping the sheer scale of what Alto has called forth. The massive summon strikes down. Ulfin's face twists in pure shock as the overwhelming attack crashes into him. The impact is both devastating and instantaneous. Rex and the other high-ranking adventurers stare in disbelief. The surrounding adventurers freeze, utterly stunned by what they have just witnessed. Ulfin is left visibly distressed and writhing in pain. Even then, Ulfin refuses to give up. He declares again and again that it is not over yet, repeating the words as he struggles to steady himself. Despite the crushing blow, his will to fight remains. Watching this, Alto remarks that this is exactly what he would expect from an A-rank adventurer. At last, Ulfin collapses to the ground, completely unable to continue. The onlooking adventurers cannot believe their eyes. One of them shouts that an A-rank adventurer was taken down in a single hit, only for another to correct him, saying that what they witnessed was far beyond a simple strike. Powell stammers Dwight's name and calls him a lifesaver. Dwight reminds her that he had warned her all along that the boy was a monster. He reflects that even with his own eyes, he could not fully perceive it, yet he never imagined Alto would be this terrifying. As others rush in to help, Reinhard shouts at Tilt to use healing magic immediately, ordering her to hurry. Tilt responds that she is already on it as she and Reinhard move to Ulfin's side. Tilt quickly realizes how critical the situation is. Ulfin had been stockpiling an enormous number of spells for the next day's expedition, and now his condition is dire. No matter how much mana and how many spells they pour into healing him, the damage is too severe to keep up with. Even someone as exceptionally resilient as Ulfin has been pushed to the brink of death by a single blow, and they are struggling to stabilize him. Alto reflects silently on the summoning magic he just used. Surveying the aftermath, Tilt remarks that this is no joke and that the situation is extremely serious. Reinhard analyzes what just occurred. The raw power alone is astounding, but the speed at which the spell was constructed is even more unbelievable. Executing a grand summoning of that scale with nothing more than a single earth hand sign should be impossible without lengthy incantations, advanced rituals, or powerful magical tools. The landscape is dominated by a massive crater and scattered debris left behind by Damocles' attack. Alto admits to himself that he may have gone a bit too far with that legendary summon. Even if he had been seeing red, he recognizes that he needs to remain more composed. At that moment, Stella approaches and calls out his name. Stella apologizes, asking if Alto did everything for her sake. Alto immediately reassures her, telling her not to worry and that she did nothing wrong. Rex and the others step closer to check on them. Alto realizes that he is standing out far too much now, and not in a good way. He quietly leaves the scene, heading back toward the grand training grounds. One of the other adventurers wonders aloud whether Ulfin's treatment has been completed safely, noting that Alto has already returned there. Reinhard then calls out to Alto, asking if he has a moment. Reinhard approaches and tells Alto that he would like to have a short conversation. Alto begins to ask about the great expedition. Reinhard confirms that his primary objective is the retrieval of the relics of the great Demon King. The conversation moves to a different location. Alto looks around the ornate office, wondering where the guild master might be, and notes that this is the guild master's office of Silver Prison. A shocking truth is about to be revealed. Reinhard explains that the guild master of Silver Prison has always been physically frail, and because of their connection, Reinhard is currently acting as the guild master's proxy. The scene then shifts to a meeting room where everyone gathers. Tilt suddenly grabs Reinhard in an overly casual way and apologizes to Alto and Stella for Wolfen's earlier rudeness toward them. Reinhard follows up with a careless apology of his own. Reinhard then scolds Tilt, telling her that she needs to show more sincerity when apologizing. Alto says that he should be the one apologizing instead. He admits that he lost his temper and went too far himself. Reinhard tells them not to worry about it and insists that the fault lies entirely with Wolfen. What truly caught Reinhard's attention, however, was Alto's summoning magic from earlier, which he describes as astonishing. He explains that Wolfen is technically the second strongest powerhouse in Silver Prison. Reinhard shifts the topic, saying he is impressed that Alto managed to take Wolfen down with a single blow. He goes on to explain that Alto's talent is so exceptional that even the venerable Master Elm described him as the strongest summoner he has seen in the past 10 years. Tilt and Stella both appear embarrassed by the praise, while Alto manages to awkwardly express his thanks. After a brief pause, Reinhard's expression turns serious once more, and he says that it is time to get down to business. Reinhard presents a simplified map showing the structure of their expedition destination. The map depicts 8 floors stacked vertically, with floors 1 through 7 already marked with checkmark. Alto and Stella step closer to examine it. Reinhard asks what they are looking at. Reinhard explains that the map represents their current expedition destination. Alto comments on how large the structure appears. Reinhard continues, explaining that they have successfully conquered layers 1 through 7, and that they have conducted a total of 7 expeditions so far. Reinhard points to the 7th floor on the map, noting that this was the furthest point they reached last time. He explains that they withdrew after establishing a base on the 7th floor. He then states that the Demon King's relic, which is their tactical objective, is now right before them, and that this will be their final expedition. Reinhard asks what Alto means. Alto interrupts, mentioning that Reinhard brought something up earlier at the training grounds. Alto asks what Reinhard meant when he mentioned the great Demon King's relics. Reinhard asks whether Alto did not receive an explanation from the Master. Stella simply acknowledges this with understanding. Alto realizes that the Master referred to this mission as a little expedition. Reinhard lets out a sigh, remarking that calling it a little expedition is an extremely modest description, typical of the Master. Alto asks what that actually means. Reinhard confirms that it is exactly what Alto suspects. He reveals that this time, their destination is Pandemonium Dallas, a forbidden territory where one of the 5 abominations left behind by the great Demon King is said to be sleeping. Reinhard explains that it is an ultra-rank, high-difficulty dungeon. Alto mutters in irritation about the old fox, clearly referring to Master Elm's massive understatement. Reinhard then tells everyone that he will explain their plan going forward. They will gather at the Grand Training Grounds tomorrow at noon. He continues outlining the strategy, explaining that after assembling, they will use Tilt's magic to teleport directly to the 7th floor of Pandemonium Dallas. From there, they will join the adventurers defending the base and begin their assault on the 8th floor. He explains that the 8th floor is completely unknown. The density of magic there is so abnormal that even clairvoyant mages are unable to see through it. Reinhard adds that the 8th layer is likely the deepest part of Pandemonium. The Great Demon Lord's relic should be located there. Their objective is to retrieve it and return safely. He pauses briefly before continuing. Reinhard explains that he wants Alto and Stella to join the first unit, their main team composed entirely of A-rank adventurers. Both Alto and Stella react with visible surprise. Alto confirms that Reinhard is referring to the first unit and asks if that means they will be fighting on the front lines. Reinhard confirms that this is exactly the case. Reinhard points out that with Alto's extraordinary summoning magic and Stella's swordsmanship, known as the Sword Princess of Demonic Flames, adding their strength would make the conquest of Pandemonium Dallas completely secure. Alto begins to hesitate, but Reinhard quickly reassures them. He explains that even in the worst-case scenario, they would be free to escape using Tilt's teleportation magic, and that this safety net is precisely why he is asking them to join. Reinhard makes his appeal, asking them to lend their strength for the sake of humanity's peace. Alto looks into Reinhard's eyes and notices how strikingly honest they are. In Reinhard's gaze, Alto senses no lies or malice, only the nobility and pride of an A-rank adventurer. Alto says that he understands. Reinhard smiles in response. Alto adds that if someone like him is acceptable, then he is willing to help. Stella follows by saying that she will accompany them as well. Reinhard stands beneath the towering columns of the hall as he addresses Alto and Stella. The scene then shifts forward in time. The day of the expedition arrives, and the grand training grounds are crowded with adventurers assembling for the mission. Alto stands among them, focused and prepared. Ulfin approaches with his arms crossed. Stella notices him first and calls out his name. Alto asks what he wants. Ulfin scratches his head awkwardly before speaking. Ulfin apologizes for what happened the previous day, admitting that he lost his temper and said some foolish things. Alto and Stella both look surprised by the sudden apology. Ulfin explains that the difference between A rank and B rank, which Alto had mocked, means a great deal to him. He continues, saying that adventurer rank is something extremely important to him. Ulfin admits that he was too harsh despite barely knowing Alto, and offers another apology. Stella adds her own apology, acknowledging that she also went too far the day before. Ulfin tells them not to worry about it, saying that he was the one who started the confrontation. He then looks directly at Alto and calls his name. Ulfin laughs and says that Alto owes him big time for that. Alto asks what he is talking about. Ulfin suddenly asks whether Alto is going on the expedition. Tilt immediately insists that of course she is going, saying there is no way she would take a break now. Tilt grins broadly and warns Alto that if he skips the expedition after getting beaten by someone he looked down on as an inferior, it would become a lifelong embarrassment. Ulfin threatens to give Tilt 2 more mouths to talk out of. The scene then shifts to the official start of the mission. Reinhard stands before the assembled adventurers and loudly calls for the beginning of the 8th expedition, rallying his fellow adventurers. As the group prepares to move, Reinhard calls out to Tilt. Tilt activates her teleportation magic and confirms that it is working, telling everyone to proceed. In an instant, the adventurers are transported. The scenery changes abruptly. Alto finds himself standing amid ancient ruins, surrounded by crumbling stone pillars and shattered architecture. Stella, Alto, Reinhard, and Dwight all stare in shock at what lies before them. Reinhard demands to know what happened and what this situation means, shouting that their base has been destroyed. The battle breaks out immediately. Powell is struck hard and lets out a scream as her arm is injured. Alto watches the sudden attack unfold. Reinhard urgently calls out Alto's name. Alto turns around, his expression tense. Reinhard warns him that there is an enemy behind him. Alto spins around and narrowly dodges the attack, moving with incredible speed to evade it. Alto faces the creature that attacked him. A massive monster towers over him, its muscular, bipedal form radiating danger. Alto notes that it is rare to encounter a humanoid monster like this. Reinhard asks whether Alto can truly handle close-quarters combat as well, referencing his super-speed weapon summoning and godlike reaction time. Alto brushes it off, insisting that it is nothing more than basic self-defense. Stella shouts that Alto can fight just as fiercely as any Vanguard-class fighter. Reinhard adds that Alto is impressive as always, and says that having him on their side is deeply reassuring. Alto mutters that he is surprised the creature is performing on par with a Vanguard-class fighter. He adds with clear exasperation that summoners are supposed to be the rearmost of rearguard classes. The fight erupts into close-quarters combat. Alto engages the monster head-on, moving with incredible speed and precision as he strikes again and again. The clash is relentless and fast-paced. Alto continues battling the creature at melee range. The surrounding adventurers watch in stunned silence, barely able to comprehend what they are witnessing. Among them, Reinhard remarks that Alto possesses remarkable skill. Alto responds modestly, brushing it off as nothing special. The monster's full skeletal form is revealed, towering and ominous. Alto reacts with surprise when he realizes that the creature is capable of using magic. Analyzing its mana, he judges that it is an A-class monster, or at the very least B rank or higher. Suddenly, the skeletal monster begins to crumble and fall apart. Alto senses danger immediately, recognizing it as an unfamiliar technique. Reinhard urgently shouts for everyone to scatter at once. Alto apologizes as he prepares to respond. Deciding that speed is critical, Alto chooses a faster approach and initiates his own summoning technique. Multiple summoning circles appear around the disintegrating monster. The summoning unleashes overwhelming power. Countless circular symbols surround the skeletal creature, energy crackling violently through the air as Alto stands calmly before it. Stella looks on in shock and realizes what is happening. She calls out that this is continuous summoning. Someone yells for everyone to get down as the magical pressure surges. Some shout in disbelief, asking what this could possibly be, while others are left speechless. One adventurer notes that the scale of the summoning is far beyond anything normal. Through the smoke and swirling energy, Alto remains composed, fully in control. The skeletal monster is struck by the full force of Alto's attack. Reinhard observes that the spell activation speed is astonishingly fast, nearly impossible to track, and that its firepower, range, and precision are flawless. Watching closely, Reinhard comes to a realization, thinking that this child may one day reach special grade. After the battle ends, Alto approaches Reinhard with a request. He asks whether there are any other monsters of the same species as the one they just fought, and whether he could restrain them instead of killing them, as there is something he wants to investigate. Reinhard agrees, and says he will inform the others. Alto thanks him sincerely. Nearby, Alto identifies the monster they defeated as the succubus's sheep coffin. Alto then reveals what he has done. A large black coffin floats above a small white sheep that carries it. Alto explains that while the sheep is asleep, time inside the coffin remains completely frozen. He adds that the earlier monster was somewhat peculiar, so he decided to preserve it alive. The sheep bleats beneath the weight of the coffin. Alto confirms that this should suffice as the skeletal monster remains sealed inside. He apologizes but asks if it could remain asleep for about 3 hours. Turning to the small white sheep, he adds that this would require a 3-day supply of toro fruit. The sheep responds with an indignant huff. Alto notes that the sheep is as calculating as ever, then mutters that it is time for the next step. He performs an armament summon, and a surge of magical energy erupts around him. In response, a massive gauntlet materializes around his arm. Alto then hoists an enormous sword and explains that it is merely an insurance policy, just to be absolutely certain. Reinhard asks what kind of weapon it is, noting that the causality appears stable. Alto and Stella move through the ruined area, where strange structures hang overhead. Stella comments on the terrible condition of the place. Alto quietly acknowledges her words as they take in the devastation. Stella wonders if the monster they encountered earlier caused all of this, noting that something about it feels off. The destruction stretches out before them, completely ruined yet strangely clean. Despite the widespread devastation, there is not a single drop of blood anywhere. Alto's eyes narrow as he takes in this unsettling detail. The expedition force regroups as Reinhard issues his orders. He instructs the first squad to investigate the anomaly in District 7 of the 7th Stratum. The second and third squads, along with Tilt, are ordered to hold their current positions. If anything unusual occurs, they are to signal using a smoke round. The adventurers acknowledge and confirm their instructions. Reinhard then specifically calls for Ulfin, Alto, and Stella to accompany him. They respond affirmatively and prepare to move out. Reinhard calls out into the ruined surroundings, urgently shouting for Evans, Claire, and Humston to respond if they are nearby. He remarks that the situation feels abnormal. As he moves forward, Reinhard reflects on the circumstances. The monster they encountered earlier was undoubtedly an A-rank threat, Yet 3 capable A-rank adventurers had been stationed in District 7. He finds it difficult to believe that a single creature could have wiped them all out. He considers the possibility that there are powerful enemies they have not yet encountered lurking somewhere in the area. Alto agrees with his assessment. Reinhard decides that they must proceed with even greater caution from this point onward. Alto then asks to excuse himself for a moment. Reinhard asks what Alto intends to do. Alto calls for his summoning to come forth and summons Denden Gamma. A small toad creature appears in response to his magic. Alto asks if he can rely on it as usual. The Denden toad opens its mouth and releases something. Reinhard reacts with confusion at the sight of the frog, while Alto comments that the creature's voice is as beautiful as ever. Alto explains that the Denden toad is an exceptional little companion that uses special magical vibrations to scout a wide area. Reinhard finds this intriguing. As the frog ribbits, Alto asks how the scouting went. After receiving the response, Alto processes the information and asks Reinhard if he has a map of the area. Alto appears to have reached a conclusion. Reinhard confirms that a simple map will suffice. Alto points to a specific location on the map and explains that while there was no direct magical reaction, there is a very faint disturbance in the mana around that area. He cannot determine whether whoever is there is friend or foe, but it seems that someone is hiding nearby. Reinhard identifies the location as being near Warehouse 3. He decides it is safe enough to proceed and orders everyone to investigate while remaining alert. The group arrives at Warehouse 3 and carefully makes their way through the debris-filled ruins. Broken crates and rubble are scattered throughout the space as they advance cautiously. Ulfin voices his frustration, declaring that there is clearly no one there. Alto, however, observes that someone does appear to be hiding after all. Ulfin reacts in surprise. Ulfin complains about where anyone could possibly hide in such a cramped warehouse. Alto responds by summoning his transmission toad. Someone comments on whether he could summon a slightly larger one. In response, a massive toad materializes with overwhelming force, its presence dominating the area. Alto announces that they should now see what kind of demons decide to come out. Moments later, a person suddenly appears, collapsed on the ground and visibly terrified. Ulfin demands to know who the man is and where he came from. Alto explains that the person had been hiding using shadow-lurking magic, but the toad's magical tremors must have dispelled it. The man desperately begs not to be killed. Reinhard stares in shock as he recognizes him, identifying him as Kenneth Thorsten. The robed figure weakly calls out Reinhard's name. Kenneth confirms his identity. Reinhard embraces him in relief, thanking the heavens that he is alive. Reinhard urgently asks what happened there and where the adventurers from District 7 have gone. Kenneth struggles to speak, only managing to mention something below. Someone asks what he means by below. Kenneth explains in distress that a mysterious man appeared from below, from the 6th layer, and wiped everyone out in an instant. Ulfin reacts in shock at the revelation. Ulfin insists that they must abandon every outpost from Sector 7 to Sector 1 and cancel the 8th expedition entirely, warning that large-scale expeditions are filled with unknown dangers. Reinhard declares that this is where it ends. Tilt immediately tells him to wait, demanding to know if he has any idea how hard everyone worked to get this far. Reinhard acknowledges that this is an extremely painful decision. He explains that aside from himself, the other adventurers have most likely been wiped out. The reality becomes clear. A terrifyingly powerful enemy has annihilated District 7, an unknown threat that attacked without warning. The 8th stratum, where the Great Demon King's relic is believed to be, now harbors this danger. Reinhard continues, explaining that there are simply too many unknown factors to justify continuing the expedition. Letting out a frustrated sigh, he orders them to warp back to the Grand Training Grounds immediately. Tilt complains that he always works people too hard, constantly demanding healing or teleportation. Despite this, the group agrees to retreat. Reinhard calls out to Tilt with concern. Tilt stammers, forcing herself to calm down and focus. She then announces that her teleportation magic is not working. She cannot activate it at all. The group erupts in shock and disbelief. Ulfin angrily demands to know what kind of nonsense she is talking about. Tilt asks them not to get so angry, explaining that she has no idea what is happening either, and that she is in trouble as well. Dwight and Alto quickly assess the situation. Alto asks Dwight if this means what he thinks it does. Dwight explains that a barrier has been deployed over the entire dungeon. It functions like a mousetrap, allowing anyone to enter freely but preventing anyone from leaving. Reinhard asks if there is any way to break it. Dwight explains that there are 3 primary methods to dispel barrier magic. Dwight lays them out clearly. The first is to defeat the caster. The second is to destroy the origin point of the technique. The third is to directly dismantle the technique itself. However, they currently cannot locate the caster, do not know where the origin lies, and have not even grasped the full scale of the barrier. Under these conditions, dispelling it would be nearly impossible. Stella suggests descending to the first layer instead. Tilt panics immediately, repeating that it is impossible. Reinhard absorbs this grim new reality in silence. Tilt asks if anyone understands how many days it would take to reach the first layer from here. She points out that they do not have nearly enough mana or supplies to make that journey. The mysterious man they encountered came from below. Stella realizes what that implies. Reinhard pieces the situation together, explaining that the outposts in District 6 and lower have likely already been destroyed. That means there will be no opportunity to resupply, on top of the A-rank monsters that would be lurking along the way. The expedition members stand together inside the warehouse, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Reinhard finally speaks, his voice steady despite everything. He states that they have no choice but to keep moving forward. The group begins their descent. Their footsteps echo through the dungeon corridors as they advance. The passage opens into a vast, desolate expanse. Stella quietly remarks that they have arrived. This is the 8th floor. The oppressive atmosphere hits them immediately. Stella notes how dense the miasma is. Reinhard raises his voice and addresses everyone, warning that from this point onward, they are in completely uncharted territory and must stay on high alert. Ulfin smirks despite the tension, remarking that alert or not, it looks like they already have company. Skeletal monsters attack without warning. The creatures rush the group with savage force. Alto identifies them as the same type of monsters they encountered earlier and calls out to Reinhard. Reinhard responds that he is aware and immediately shouts orders. Everyone is to capture the creatures alive, not kill them. Ulfin clashes with one of the skeletons, clicking his tongue in irritation and muttering about what a hassle this is. Tilt dodges attacks and counters clumsily, complaining that even though she is terrible at fighting, she is somehow managing. Reinhard is struck by one of the creatures as the battle intensifies. Alto unleashes a powerful sword strike, the blade slicing through the air with decisive force. The battlefield spreads out below, revealing adventurers scattered across the area, with defeated skeletal monsters lying among broken chains and twisted metal debris. Ulfin approaches a large reinforced door and remarks on what it is. He observes the heavy metal construction and comments that it is simple and straightforward. Without any warning, the door suddenly explodes outward with overwhelming force. The throne room is revealed in full. A massive ancient throne rests atop a raised platform, supported by ornate pillars that loom over the chamber. Heart lies collapsed across the ground. Reinhard states that there is no mistake about what they are seeing. Alto's eyes widen as he realizes what they have found. He identifies it as the great demon king's cursed object. A voice echoes through the chamber, filled with amusement. The unseen speaker remarks that they were wondering what all the noise was about, and notes that it seems they now have a guest. A long-haired figure steps forward, dressed in formal attire, arms crossed as they hold a rod. The individual introduces himself as Regulus Rod, one of the 10 demon subjugators, and remarks that it is a pleasure to meet them. Regulus Rod's face comes fully into view, wearing a smug expression. He tells the group to remember his name from this moment on. The adventurers react with visible shock, their expressions stiffening in disbelief. Someone on the right questions whether it is really a monster from District 7, while another voice on the left stammers, wondering if such a thing could truly be possible. Regulus Rod calmly explains that their inherent magic is a unique ability. He describes it as a power called life transfer. He continues by saying that it originally began as a form of amusement, granting life to inanimate objects such as stones and flowers. Recently, however, they have managed to apply it to living beings as well. Regulus Rod pauses, trying to recall the details. He mentions that since the one who escaped yesterday was Evans, then this one must be Claire. He points at another and wonders aloud whether that one is Hamston. Looking back and forth between the skeletal monsters, he asks if perhaps they mixed them up. Regulus Rod then apologizes casually, admitting that they are simply terrible at remembering human faces and names. Alto immediately recognizes the names and realizes with certainty that he knows them. Reinhard's face twists with pure anguish as the truth sinks in. Regulus Rod spreads a wide smile and asks whether the group does not find this fascinating. He explains that this is an experiment meant to test how far humans can be monsterized while still retaining their sense of self. He goes on to describe the method in detail, explaining that they extract the life force from a nearby monster and then inject it into a human, forcibly fusing the two lives together. The result is a monster-human hybrid that possesses traits of both man and beast. Regulus Rod remarks that A-rank adventurers truly do have durable bodies. He calls them the ideal test subjects, noting that they do not break easily even under reckless modifications. Alto snaps back, calling Regulus an idiot and demanding to know what he believes human life and dignity truly are. Reinhard surges forward with her weapon raised, declaring that she will never forgive Regulus. She brings her blade down with overwhelming force as Regulus grins in anticipation. Reinhard's strike collides with something solid and comes to an abrupt halt. She realizes it is a barrier. The surrounding adventurers react in disbelief, with someone muttering that such a thing should be impossible. Regulus Rod mocks the demon-severing sword Gora, questioning whether it is truly a legendary blade capable of cutting through all evil. He remarks that it is unfortunate for Reinhard, because he is extremely confident in his barrier techniques and has perfect countermeasures against demon-severing attacks. Regulus Rod addresses Reinhard directly, stating that to break his barrier, the output of someone like her is nowhere near sufficient. Alto's eyes narrow sharply as he tells Regulus to be quiet for a moment. Regulus Rod barely has time to react before an overwhelming force erupts. A massive explosion of power detonates, tearing through the space. The barrier shatters completely. Alto's overwhelming power obliterates Regulus's confident defense as if it were nothing, sending destructive shockwaves rippling outward in all directions. The watching adventurers are left frozen in absolute shock, their faces locked in disbelief. Alto follows up by performing an idol summoning, calling forth the twin-winged god Algora. The colossal divine being materializes, enormous white wings spread wide, its ornate armored form towering over the battlefield. Regulus staggers backward as the remnants of his barrier crumble away. He stares upward at the overwhelming divine presence and questions who Alto truly is. Alto responds calmly, stating that he is merely an ordinary D-rank adventurer. His expression remains humble, even as the godlike entity he summoned looms silently behind him. The atmosphere shifts as recognition spreads through the group. Someone realizes what they are facing and mentions the 10 envoys of demon resurrection. Alto's eyes widen as the truth clicks into place. He studies Regulus more carefully, and the reality becomes undeniable. Alto thinks to himself that this man is extremely dangerous. The A-rank adventurer Alto fought earlier does not even come close by comparison. This power is on an entirely different level. Regulus Rod stands before them, radiating an aura that clearly places him at special grade, far beyond any normal ranking. Regulus offers thanks for the polite introduction and asks who they are. Reinhard introduces himself as Reinhard Orug, then asks Regulus to explain exactly what the 10 demon envoys are. Regulus responds that the 10 demon envoys are comrades gathered for a noble purpose, nothing more and nothing less. Someone questions what that so-called noble purpose could be. Regulus smirks and asks whether it is not obvious. The answer becomes clear as he reveals it plainly: the complete resurrection of the magnificent great demon king. The adventurers react in shock. One of them lets out a confused sound while others stare in disbelief. Alto speaks up, stating that such a thing should be impossible, insisting that reviving a life lost 1,000 years ago cannot be done. Regulus gestures theatrically as he continues. He says that putting it into words takes only an instant, but in truth, it has been an unimaginably long wait. He spreads his arms wide, anticipation burning across his face. They have waited for this moment for countless years. All that time, all that patience, has led to now. Regulus stands before them in open ecstasy, his mouth stretched wide in delight. He asks what they think, then declares with twisted enthusiasm how beautiful the entrails are. Reinhard responds calmly, remarking that everyone must have their own sense of aesthetics. He then asks if he may pose one more question. Regulus asks what it is he wants to know. The scene shifts, revealing the destroyed forest of District 7 in the background. Reinhard asks Regulus directly whether he was the one who attacked District 7. Regulus pauses, repeating the name District 7 as though searching his memory. Recognition suddenly dawns, and his face brightens. He cheerfully confirms that he is referring to those fancy little apartment-like structures, and yes, he was the one who crushed them. Regulus continues, his expression twisting with something like regret. He says it truly pained him to destroy such a well-constructed building. If only those adventurers had not gone on such a pointless rampage, it could have been preserved in perfect condition. Reinhard's eyes narrow with anger as he listens. Regulus laments the waste, treating it as a great loss. Reinhard states that he could not find the bodies of his comrades anywhere and asks whether Regulus might have kept them alive. Regulus confirms this casually, saying of course he did. He explains that he despises waste more than anything else, and could never treat the precious radiance known as life with disrespect. Reinhard processes this and says that, in that case, he supposes he can at least ask. He asks whether Regulus will return his comrades to him. Regulus reacts with visible confusion and shock, questioning whether Reinhard did not just kill them himself. Reinhard presses further, asking directly whether Regulus killed them. Alto interjects, saying that he knew it and urging Reinhard to look at the evidence. Regulus points out that Reinhard passed plenty of them on the way here. He smiles as he clarifies that he is referring to his failed creations. Reinhard questions what he means by failures and what he saw on the way. His eye widens as the horrifying truth finally becomes clear. Regulus bursts into laughter. He asks whether they truly did not notice. He gestures toward the monsters lingering nearby and reveals the truth with delight. Every single one of them, he says, is made from Reinhard's precious comrades. Regulus questions how a mere D-rank adventurer could stand before him like this. Alto looks visibly shaken by the remark. Regulus chuckles and tells him to stop telling such obvious lies. Regulus continues, stating that with that level of magical power, there is no possibility that Alto is truly D-rank. Based on the fact that Alto does not appear on any official records, Regulus concludes that Alto must be an unregistered special grade adventurer. In response, Alto calls out to Agora and launches an attack, issuing the command for the Siegebreaker Wing Strike. The massive divine summon Agora unleashes a devastating wing attack toward Regulus, the sheer force of it overwhelming the battlefield. Regulus observes that the power behind the strike is genuine. However, something immediately draws Alto's attention. Regulus counters by activating Shinra Tensei. Alto's confident expression falters as the technique takes effect. Regulus moves freely through the air, his body wrapped in explosive energy as he deflects and neutralizes the massive attack with ease. Regulus grins confidently and declares that at this level, Alto has no chance of defeating the 10 demon envoys. The adventurers watching are left in stunned silence. Stella realizes that Agora has been neutralized in a single strike. Alto, analyzing the situation, identifies the technique as Shinra Tensei and understands that it is a form of magic that interferes directly with life itself. Regulus explains his reasoning. The strange reaction came from Agora's life force running wild within his body, causing it to self-destruct. Since Alto deliberately caught the siege wing strike with his right hand, the activation condition must involve direct contact with the target. However, Regulus notes that it would be naive to assume the trigger point is limited to only the right hand. At the very least, the left hand must also be considered, and it would be dangerous to rule out the possibility that Alto's entire body could function as the trigger. Regulus then turns his attention back to Alto and asks whether he is truly a summoner. The two clash at close range, their faces nearly touching as their movements blur together. Regulus mockingly asks if Alto is holding up. Alto registers the exchange, realizing just how terrifyingly fast Regulus is in close quarters combat. Alto calls out an armament summon. Magical energy erupts as weapons materialize instantly in his hands, the summoning completing in a flash. Regulus admits that Alto has genuinely surprised him. He acknowledges that he did not expect a summoner to be capable in close combat. Alto briefly wonders whether what he just witnessed was high-speed regeneration, but quickly dismisses the idea. He steadies himself, gripping the dual summon blades. Regulus grins knowingly and remarks that Alto has extra lives in reserve. Alto realizes that Regulus has seen through his strategy instantly. Regulus comments that this is going to be troublesome. The explanation becomes clear. Regulus is likely using Divine Screw reincarnation to siphon off his own life force little by little and store it. When he receives a fatal wound, he consumes one of those stored lives to trigger a form of pseudo-high-speed regeneration. Alto understands what this means. To defeat Regulus, he must either exhaust every single stored life or defeat him in one decisive blow. Regulus stands enveloped in swirling energy as Alto lays out the two grim options in his mind: slowly whittle down every life Regulus has stockpiled, or end the fight with a single overwhelming strike. Even so, Alto acknowledges that Regulus is truly formidable. Regulus grows visibly excited, his expression lighting up as he points out that a full-range summoner capable of close, mid, and long-range combat is exceedingly rare. He admits that he is genuinely thrilled. With that, Regulus calls out Shinra Tensei once more, this time targeting Alto's summoned weapons directly. A massive explosive force slams into Alto from the front, the impact rippling outward with violent speed lines. The sheer intensity of the blow catches everyone watching completely off guard. Stella urgently calls out Alto's name, having noticed something unusual about the carpet beneath where he had been standing. Alto responds immediately with his own overwhelming technique, invoking phenomenon summoning, Breath of the Kiln. A colossal vortex of magical energy forms around him, expanding into an enormous circular phenomenon that dominates the battlefield. Regulus grunts under the crushing pressure, while one of the observers remarks on just how intense the summoning truly is. Regulus quickly analyzes the situation and realizes that continuing a direct head-on clash puts him at a disadvantage. He decides that it is time to change tactics. Regulus's eyes widen in shock as Alto summons a massive white, fluffy creature. The white summon launches itself toward Regulus with tremendous force. Regulus curses as he is forced to take the hit instead of evading, realizing that if he dodges, Alto would slam into the wall behind him and die from the momentum. The white creature executes a powerful binding technique, wrapping itself tightly around Regulus and constricting him with overwhelming force. Regulus is sent flying through the air by the impact and calls out that Alto's kindness is his greatest weakness. While still airborne, he unleashes Shinra Tensei. Regulus observes Alto's escape method, noting that Alto attached stretched slime to his back and the wall, then instantly contracted it for an emergency evasion. He finds the application clever, but declares that he will not allow Alto to escape. Regulus activates Shinra Tensei again in pursuit. A powerful lightning technique tears through the air toward Regulus, depicted with massive destructive force and a gigantic eye looming in the background as the attack connects. Alto unleashes Thunder-style, Fourth Sword. The strike lands with devastating impact, explosions of debris and energy erupting across the area. Alto stands afterward, catching his breath. From behind him, Stella calls out to check if he is alright. Alto replies that he is fine, saying it only grazed him. Regulus acknowledges Alto's strength, remarking that he can hardly believe Alto is a support class. He notes that a summoner of this level is closer to a magician. Regulus then asks whether Alto is beginning to tire. Alto denies it twice, stating that he is only getting started. Regulus comments on Alto's incredible mana reserves. Regulus observes that a summoning of this magnitude must be consuming an enormous amount of mana. However, Alto does not appear to be bluffing. Regulus realizes that waiting for Alto to exhaust his mana is unrealistic. He decides instead to wear Alto down in a different way. Regulus calls out for everyone to gather around. He declares that what they are about to see is his ambitious masterpiece, something into which he poured his heart and soul. He tells them to feast their eyes on it as he presents one of the transformed victims, writhing in agony. One of the adventurers reacts in horror, unable to comprehend what is happening. Suddenly, the floor begins to rise violently. The ground shatters apart with tremendous force. A strange, spotted hand with unnatural patterns emerges from the broken floor, immediately recognized by Alto. From the shattered ground, more skeletal monster humans begin to emerge. Their bodies are covered in eerie spotted patterns as they rise one after another. At least 10 of these grotesque beings pull themselves up from below, their monstrous forms illuminated against the darkness. The adventurers recoil in shock. Someone cries out in disbelief, while another points out the sheer number of enemies. One adventurer notes that there are at least 10 of them. Reinhard stares down at the scene grimly. Alto asks whether all of these monsters were created from adventurers as well. Ulfin snaps back, telling him not to be ridiculous, stating that there were not that many people in District 7.